Hey, this is Bishop Jackson speaking to you on Affinity Xtra, where we do extraordinary things. This is my rock solid show, and we're sharing two parts of a show that reflects upon Strange Fruit, that strange song that Billie Holiday sang. Billie Holiday, an amazing jazz singer that brought this song to light, that speaks about the damaged and lynched black bodies that they would find all over the southern states of America. And for us who are rooted in the Caribbean and also African diaspora, it is the black bodies that were murdered, that were killed, that were enslaved, that the black princes and princesses and citizens of Africa and the diaspora across the Caribbean who were brutalized with colonialism and also transatlantic slavery. And they were so brutalized, so evilly treated until the name for blackness became slave. But I want to readdress that, to remember that those who were taken from the islands of the Caribbean also, or were taken to the islands of the Caribbean from the African continent, they were people of noble heritage. They were citizens of Africa, citizens of where they call Nigeria now, citizens of where they call Ghana, citizens of the coastal areas and also some of the interiors, citizens of those kingdoms. They were expatriates of Africa, of the tribes that were large, kingdoms and kings and queens. And so their first name is not slave, their first name is citizen of a kingdom. And therefore they are a captured people, and they have now been brought into a context of slavery. So we park that, but we don't park it too deep. Just like every other group of people, we have our pain that we also need to respond to and allow people to understand that it doesn't disappear when such atrocities have happened to our community. I wanted to reflect upon this song, Strange Fruit, as we look at a couple of, a broad issue of the deaths. One of George Floyd, which is a massive one, which went worldwide, but then also digging a little deeper and reflecting on Stephen Lawrence's death as well. And remember, I'm just talking about deaths, I'm not talking about those who suffered, who are still alive. I'm just talking about the deaths that have been particularly harrowing because they have been in the view of many people from around the world. Stephen Lawrence's was so muted until I look back and I reflect as to why there was such a muted response around the world for Stephen Lawrence being murdered in such a disgraceful and brutal manner by racist, wicked, evilous people who did not serve the right sentences for their heinous crime. It wasn't an authority that had a question over his head. He was coming home with his friend, innocent of any kind. He had no police record, walking in South London where there were so many African Caribbean males. But then in a series of stories around about when Stephen Lawrence died, there was a racist gang in Eltham who had committed many crimes with knives that the community knew about. And so Stephen Lawrence was the innocent victim of this crime. And so his blood cries out. When the scripture talks about innocent blood crying out, such as like when Cain killed Abel, his blood cried out. The fact is that God has made one human race. Did you know that? Did you know that? Or were you thinking about, we got several races? Don't get it twisted. Come on. Look very carefully. There's only one race of people that can procreate amongst themselves, which is the human race. You may have different ethnicities, but you have one human race that God made. So if there's one human race that God made, when Cain killed Abel, this was like when those wicked devils killed Stephen Lawrence. You killed your brother. And what whiteness or white supremacism wants to do is divide the human race up so that there is no brotherhood. But Dr. King talks about the brotherhood of humanity. The tapestry of humanity is a brotherhood. And so when we're talking culturally, we think about some things that are taboo in our communities. You know, I reflected upon in Matthew, where in Matthew 28, Matthew chapter 8 and verse 28 is a very challenging text. It talks about when Jesus comes and he goes through Gennesaret and he finds a man in the tombs. He says he goes to the other side of the country of the Gennesarenes, and there he met him two possessed with devils, coming out of the tomb, exceedingly fierce, so that no man might pass by. And behold, they cried out, saying, What have we to do with thee, Jesus? I'm just reading this and paraphrasing. Jesus, thou Son of God, art thou come hither to torment us before time? And they were a good way off, and they were a good way off from him. And then there was a herd of swine. And so the devil sought him, because Jesus was about to deliver them, and the devil sought him to be thrown into the swine, and therefore they were cast into the swine. I think that's why many people don't eat pork, but we still eat the ham anyway. But they cast the devils into the swine, and the swine galloped down the hill and they jumped off the cliff. And so the ones who were possessed with devils were made in their right mind. They were whole. And behold, the whole city, it said, came to come and view these men, and sought that he would depart from their coasts. And so this is what I'm talking about. This is a brown story. This is a black story. And as the academics said as we were on, please make sure that you try and connect with Queen's Foundation, especially the Black Theology Unit, which is led by Dulcie McKenzie, Dr. Dulcie McKenzie and Dr. Robert Beckford. A fantastic academic conversation happened with Dr. Remy, I think it was, and I'll get the names for you. If I get it wrong, I'll get the names for you. And Dr. Remy was saying to us, it is more difficult to find white faces in the Bible than to find black faces, because it is an Afro-Asianic story. So to find a white face in the Bible is far harder than to find black faces, because it is a black story. And so this story of Jesus meeting these men in these tombs was a very often occurrence for him. And it says to us that the taboo of our society is that those who are damaged, those who are broken, those who are have mental health issues do not need mercy, do not need compassion. And the fact is that they do. And the story of Kingsley Borough in the two major deaths in the Midlands of people with mental health issues, and it's not just two, it's many more. The stories that have come out of the Mary Seacole unit, and they were in the news, so no one's going to sue me about this, because the reality is they were in the news. They used ligatures and hung themselves, two on the same ward. And so the challenge that we have in our community is that people's minds are going because of pressure, because of micro-racism at times, but because of the pressure of their lives. And so I look at these damaged bodies that Jesus took time to heal, took time to find, and two narratives. One narrative speaks about one man called Legion, and this narrative speaks about two men. So there is a question over whether it was a number of situations that Jesus went to, and that the mental health asylums in those days was to just banish the people into the wilderness or into the desert area. And so in this text in Matthew 8, there is a challenge to us to see our brothers and sisters who are going through mental health issues as people who need our care, our help. They do not need to be shunned or pushed away. But look how this even gets even worse. When you consider that Dalian Atkinson, great footballer, awesome career, but then after the career, something happened, something went wrong. and the mercy of the community was not his. I don't know what happened with his family. I don't know what happened with his wife and so on and so forth. But you can see it when in the press, Gascoigne, I think Gascoigne went through a mental health issue, and bam, it was in the news, it was in the paper, help Gascoigne, but these guys dropped through the net. So he's having a major mental health episode. He's got a lot of things wrong with his body. He needs medical assistance. He needs care. He needs care quickly. In that moment that he loses his faculties and goes down to his father to, because they're always, they say that there is always something about when people go through a mental episode that they find the people that they feel safe with, or that they find people who are prominent in their lives to focus on. And he focused on his father. And whilst he was in his psychosis, he purported to be Jesus, and he purported that he was going to take his father's life or something of that kind. But he was in his, he was going through a mental health episode. His father then calls the police. The police go down and they tase him so much times, tase him for 33 seconds when the prescribed time is 5 seconds, 33 seconds, so you have to override the taser gun. Kicked him until the laces of the boots were indented in the man's head. That is the police record. One time I heard that, and it's never come on the news again, that the neighbor thought that they were playing football, that they kicked him so hard she could hear it from the house. And the officer said that they only kicked him once, but that's another story. So this is the challenge that we have here now. Is it because Dalian was going through a mental health episode that we didn't think it was right for us to respond to his death? And so the scripture reminds us that Jesus responds to the mental health episode with care, love, and restoration. And perhaps we are looking as a community at people who go through mental health issues and episodes and forgetting that they need us to be around them. No matter how hard it is, they need us to be around them. Having challenges myself, I found that counseling and praying and talking went a long way, even sometimes more than medications that I find. But I'm not saying that that's the only way. I thought about the death of Stephen Lawrence, and it just reflected on me that there was no way that this should even been questioned. The police were trying to find, they tried to pin a set of gloves on Stephen Lawrence that were irrelevant, saying that he was a cat burglar, he was this and he was that. There was no evidence whatsoever, nothing whatsoever. There was nothing shady about Stephen Lawrence's life, and that's why Doreen and Neville Lawrence will forever be the heroes in this piece. But I sometimes ask the question, where were we? Where were we as Christians? Where were the Christians to rally behind them? I know that one beautiful thing that happened was that as Stephen Lawrence passing away on the pavement, there was a Christian woman who prayed with him and allowed him to acknowledge Jesus Christ on the pavement. I thought that was something in the narrative that you don't hear that often. But I wanted there to be more anger, more wrath from our community about this death. But I look back and I said it was really a Londoners thing, but it didn't go across the country and across the world. Now look at this, George Floyd's death here now with the authorities. The authorities had reasons, and we saw those reasons were poor and pathetic. That's why Chauvin is in jail, and the rest of the officers that colluded with him are going to be dealt with also. But we looked at the case was so obviously wicked that Chauvin lost his case, saying that it was other underlying issues that made George Floyd die. So we look at the case here and we look at these bodies, because in every one of these there is a dead black man or a dead black woman, Sandra Bland. And so the question is, why is it so easy for a society that is non-black to consider that black bodies have to end up in mortuaries rather than given the opportunity to reform if they're wrong, or given the opportunity to live if it's a questionable situation. And that is the challenge that we have. And that is why I reflected on this topic about strange fruit. Strange fruit was about lynching was the policy to keep black people in line in Southern America. And in the Caribbean, they use also lynching as well, the Willie Lynch laws, but they are unrecorded. There are unrecorded evidences of slaves being killed, being lynched, being beheaded, being slaughtered, being shot. Those who rebelled were murdered in some pernicious and wicked ways. And so we look at the death of Sam Sharp, the deacon who God spoke to about the ending of slavery, and he spoke to the other slaves. They made sure they killed Sam Sharp and also Paul Bogle. But Nanny Maroon was hid up in the mountains. So we've got to understand that there is guerrilla warfare in the midst of this. Why am I talking about strange fruit? Because the more we see it, the more we get frustrated. The more we see it, we think there's no hope for us. The more I see it, sometimes the more I ask myself, is there somewhere else that I can go to live a free life and not feel like I am part of the nuisance, a problem? You know, the underlying challenge is that white supremacy always believes that the black man is a problem, always believes that black children are an issue, always believes that our diversity because of our race makes us more susceptible to anger, to violence, and to crime. And this is this whiteness that needs to be broken. This white supremacist structure that sees African people with a problem as a problem, should I say, or rather than a person with a problem, they see the whole unit of Africanness as a problem until it conforms in subservience. And this is the evil that is set before us. So we're going to break here for a moment, and we're going to come back in with our second half as we talk about how James Cone analyzes it and how he talks about the God of the oppressed as well. Thank you so much. We have just been rolling on, and we're rolling quick on Affinity Xtra, where we do extraordinary things, and you're on Rock Solid with Bishop Jonathan Jackson. Take a breath now. God bless you.
Visit us for updates and shows at affinityextra.co.uk.